Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Absolute Resonance Part 3 based on novel. So let's start. The room was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. The black crystal ball was emitting a faint radiance that reflected Li Luo's unsettled countenance. It was a strange sight. He was currently embroiled in an impossible choice. His parents' hard work had unearthed hope of a new dawn for his blank palaces. However, he had never expected that this hope would come with such a heavy cost. Li Luo would only have 5 years left to live. If in 5 years he could not enter the Duke stage and undergo a life-changing metamorphosis, then he would come to an unsatisfactory end. 5 years to become a Duke? He was only 17 now, and in 5 years he would be 22. 1. Even after reaching deep into his knowledge, he had never heard of such a young duke in the history of the Xia Kingdom. Exactly what sort of culmination of talent, opportunities, and effort would allow one to construct such a miracle? Li Luo did not know, and hence he could feel a huge sense of pressure envelop him. He even found it hard to breathe. The current him could continue to live a mediocre life. His parents had left behind House Loulan, which still possessed a decent amount of businesses. Even if he could not control any of it and gave it all up, he could still live the life of a leisurely young lord, free from any worldly worries. The path of the acquired resonance would place him on the edge, constantly struggling and making every second count. He would have to struggle and wholly strive, squeezing out every last ounce of potential, all to fight against the heavens and to eke out a shred of vitality, all just to barely survive. Two wholly different paths. Just what should he do? Li Luo closed his eyes, his heart engulfed in turmoil. His mind flitted through numerous scenes. He thought of the strange gazes he received from others at the academy. People often liked to say that a tiger had given birth to a dog. How could such illustrious parents give birth to a son with such poor abilities? He thought of the person with a pair of pure and beautiful golden pupils. Deep down, he did feel a sense of love and yearning towards Jiang Qing'e, this he did not deny. However, Jiang Qing'e's exceptionalism was attractive and she had a horde of other fans. Such an elegant and unparalleled lady could only be matched by a man of heroic and extraordinary temperament. This was only human nature, and there was nothing shameful about it. When they were young, Li Luo and Jiang Qing'e often competed in all sorts of areas. However, due to all sorts of different reasons, Li Luo lost more than he won. As the two of them grew older, such interactions lessened. This was especially noticeable after their palaces manifested. Li Luo knew that the gap between the two had only widened, transforming into an uncrossable chasm. Jiang Qing'e had also begun to reduce their friendly competitions from that point on. The encounters over the years looked as though they had smoothened Li Luo's edge over time, as he seemingly became much more mellow. Only he knew that deep down, his desire to win and compete had never diminished, only further stoked ablaze by his apparent weakness. The reason he was willing to challenge Jiang Qing'e was not simply because he was coerced, he wanted to do so. In a normal situation, even catching up to Jiang Qing'e, who had already left him in the dust in the cultivation race, was as impossible as surmounting the heavens. However, there was a brief sense of hope now. Was he going to give up on this hope? His real answer was that this was impossible. Li Luo's eyes flashed open, and a trace of sharpness could be seen in his gaze. He stared at the apparitions of Li Taixien and Tan Tailan before saying, "Dad, Mom, I have always had a wild heart. However, those who know of my condition would laugh at me if they heard this, as if I don't understand my own situation. I'm not only interested in catching up to Sister Qing'e, I want to surpass her. And not just her, I want to surpass the two of you." A grin hung on his face, displaying his pearly white teeth. "I dream that in the future, people will not recognize me for being Li Taixien and Tan Tailan's son. Instead, I want others to see you and know you as Li Luo's parents." He chuckled. "Dad, Mom, I am very thankful for this gift you have left for my 17th birthday. Rest assured, I will not let you down. All I have to do is reach the Duke stage in 5 years. No biggie. I, Li Luo, accept this challenge." As he made his final declaration, his eyes lit up with resolve and he no longer hesitated. reaching out with his palm, lightly pressing them onto the black crystal ball. Wang! The black crystal ball responded brilliantly, and Li Luo could feel a piercing pain transmitting through his palms. It was as though countless needles were piercing into him. At the same time, the black crystal ball began to shatter, and within its interior quietly lay two objects. One was a black-colored jade slip. As expected, this ought to be the instructions to cultivate the acquired resonance godly forging art. The other item was mysterious-looking. It looked like a liquid and yet seemed to be an illusory item made of flowing light. It was azure in color and seemed to be emitting minute rays of sacred light. Li Luo's gaze was affixed onto that illusory liquid object. He knew that this was something that would change his destiny. His parents had spent blood, sweat, and tears to refine this acquired resonance. Additionally, by merely setting his eyes on this strange object, Li Luo could feel a sense of compatibility with it from the depths of his soul. It was as though this was something that had always belonged to him. His parents clearly weren't lying when they said that this acquired resonance was crafted from his own blood essence and spirit soul. The compatibility between man and resonance was instinctive. Just as Li Luo was completely enthralled by the mystical acquired resonance, a complicated sigh echoed from behind him. Li Luo raised his head and saw that his dad's apparition had begun to act again. The expression on its face was clearly filled with complications. "Little Luo, it looks like you've made your decision," Li Taixian unhurriedly said. "As your dad, your choice does make me feel a little sad. However, from the perspective of a man, I feel relieved and proud of you. Your future path will undoubtedly be full of danger and peril. But as the son of Li Taixian, how can these obstacles faze you?" His mom's eyes were also splashed with a tinge of wetness. It seems that when they had left these apparitions behind, they had already predicted this outcome. Perhaps this feeling was also unbearable for her. As a mother, she found it hard to accept that her child would only have 5 more years of life. Yet she did not dissuade him, as she knew that this decision was for Li Luo to make. Furthermore, he had clearly made his decision, so she would do everything she could to support him and believe in him. "Little Luo, since you have chosen your path, let Mom tell you exactly what sort of acquired resonance we have refined for you." Hearing his mom's words, Li Luo perked up. "Your dad and I experimented with this acquired resonance countless times before finding the most compatible treasures to forge it. This is a 4th-grade water resonance supplemented with a light resonance." Li Luo was a little shocked before he gave a bitter smile. "Wait, why a water resonance? Amongst elemental resonances, there weren't elements that were better or worse than one another in general. However, there were differences when it came to practical uses. If one was interested in power and penetrating strength, fire, thunder, and metal were definitely the best in class. Water resonances were usually more nurturing and defensive in nature. It was a more flexible sort of element. He had never imagined that his acquired resonance would be one that was more on the side of soft and yielding. Little Luo, you must surely be thinking that a water resonance is soft and weak, something that runs contrary to the strength you wish for in your heart. Don't underestimate the might of a water resonance. Although they might initially be more feeble in terms of sheer destructive ability, its affinity for vigorous, sustained attacks is unparalleled and will allow you to grind down any other element. If you are able to exhibit the strengths of the water resonance, it will not be any weaker than other elemental resonances. Furthermore, your water resonance is not a normal one. It also has the power of a light resonance supporting it. If you are able to fully utilize the power of the two, the final result will definitely exceed your imagination. Of course, your parents did not just give you a water-light resonance for no reason. There are 2 more important reasons for this. You will lose a large amount of your blood essence and a large portion of your life during your first absorption of a acquired resonance. It will inevitably bring about grievous injury to you. Water resonances are gentle, and this water resonance's power will nourish your injured body, allowing you to recover quickly. It was as though Li Luo had been enlightened. So this was the reason why. In terms of recovery prowess, a water-light resonance would definitely be top tier in terms of healing. Then what's the second reason? Li Luo asked curiously within his heart. Not before long, his dad continued to explain. The second reason is that we hope you become an amazing resonance artificer to supplement your future cultivation. Do you remember the fundamental requirement to become a resonance artificer? Li Luo paused momentarily. Being a resonance artificer requires one to either possess a water or light resonance. When it came to cultivation, there were naturally numerous auxiliary professions that arose to support it. A resonance artificer was just one of many. They were able to refine and improve the grade of one's resonances with the usage of magical treasures. There were also alchemists, however, those required one to possess a wood or fire resonance. There were also resonant artifact crafters, those who could craft resonant artifacts used for battle. This required metal, fire, or earth resonances. Resonance artificers and alchemists were similar in many ways. The key difference was that one improved the grade of their resonances, while the other directly increased resonant power. Water and light resonance cultivators had purifying powers, which was the key reason why they were ideal for becoming resonance artificers. But why do I need to become a resonance artificer? Li Luo was a little unconvinced. Just as he asked that question, Li Taishuan's voice once again continued his explanation. That is because you have a blank palace. You're able to undergo unlimited refinements of your resonance grades. If you become a resonance artificer, you will gain a deeper understanding of the process and your own palaces, allowing you to strive for perfection. Additionally, other resonance artificers either only possess a water or light resonance. Your water-light resonance power, on the other hand, contains two elements that can mutually support each other. This is unheard of. If you don't become a resonance artificer, it would be a waste of a heaven-bestowed talent. The spirit liquids and purifying lights you produce will clearly outclass any made by any other resonance artificer. Tan Tailan then coyly covered her mouth and laughed. Little Luo, this is a backup plan that your dad and I have left for you. If House Loulan has been squandered to destitution by you, you'll at least have a set of skills that will allow you to survive. Li Luo's jaw dropped at his parents' plan. In the end, he could only shake his head. He was absolutely speechless. He could only say that his parents had planned for every contingency. Even the profession they had in mind for him had been picked to capitalize on his first acquired resonance's strength. However, little Luo, do keep in mind that this first acquired resonance is just the initial step. Your dad and mom were able to help you refine it with your blood essence and spirit soul. The processes of creating your second and third resonances will be increasingly complicated. You will have only yourself to rely on to discover the route ahead. We recommend that you break into the Resonant Master stage before searching for a way to craft your second acquired resonance. We have left some possible suggestions on the paths you can take for it as well within the Jade. Our experiences have also been recorded for your reference. The acquired resonance godly forging art within this Jade will only allow you to craft a second acquired resonance. The complete method to craft the third acquired resonance has been left in Xia City for you to retrieve when the time is right. At this point, Li Luo noticed that the apparitions of his parents seemed to have dimmed a little. This led him to realize that this transmission was finally coming to an end. Dad, Mom, Li Luo couldn't help but to reach out and grab hold of the light apparitions, only for his hands to pass right through them. The two continued to look at him with gazes that were full of love and doting compassion. Little Luo, it looks like things are about to end. Your dad and mom believe that since you have chosen this road, you will definitely succeed in breaking out of this 5-year limit. We know that you worry for us, but rest assured, before we meet you again, nothing will happen to us. Lastly, little Luo, you must remember that no matter how worried you are, you cannot search for us without reaching the Duke stage. Finally, the apparitions began to flicker and eventually faded into thin air. The entire room was once again subsumed in darkness and silence. Li Luo continued to sit in front of the black crystal ball, his eyes watery and red. In the end, no tears fell. He rubbed his eyes and made a commitment. Dad, Mom. Thank you for giving me everything. Please wait for me. When we meet again, I will definitely shock you and be your source of pride. He gradually composed himself, soothing the turmoil within. After which, he reached out towards the black piece of jade and stashed it away before his eyes landed upon the azure and sacred light-emitting object. From today onwards, I will be someone who has manifested a resonance. A blazing fervor could be seen within Li Luo's pupils, along with excitement that had finally reawakened. Without hesitation, he reached out towards the azure-acquired resonance. Wang! At the moment of contact, he first felt an icy feeling wash through him, followed by an indescribable, acute pain exploding throughout his entire body. This acute pain intensified and built up, to the point that it completely overwhelmed Li Luo's consciousness. His vision suddenly turned black and his entire body gradually collapsed onto the ground with a heavy thud. In the depths of the darkness, Li Luo was shocked awake by the sounds of countless slamming doors. He could faintly make out the shapes and colors of his familiar room as he struggled to open his heavy eyelids with all his might. This is, what? In an awakened stupor, he began to mumble incoherently. To his terror, he suddenly noticed that his voice was much weaker than it was before. He once possessed the vibrance of spring, but now he seemed to be like an old man with his life candle faint enough to snuff out from a breeze. Li Luo struggled to pick himself up from the floor, but even after half a day of struggling, he realized that he didn't even have an ounce of strength within his limbs. In the end, all he could do was resign himself to fate and remain lying on the floor for another half a day. Only then did he recover enough strength to stand up and plop himself onto a seat beside him. "Young lord, are you well?" At this point, a female's voice could be heard. It seemed to be Cai Wei who was asking after him. Li Luo coughed and replied, "I woke up a little late." "What's up?" "Qing'e instructed me to inform you that House Loulan's Council of Nine's Pavilion Masters are all here and for you to get ready," Cai Wei's soft and pleasing voice continued. "All right." Li Luo glanced at a small crack by the window. The light that was coming through was especially resplendent. It was clear that he had laid around for the entire night. Hearing Li Luo's reply, Cai Wei felt that things were a little strange. Why did he sound so feeble? Regardless, she moved on and continued with her tasks. Li Luo then shifted his gaze to where he had placed the black crystal ball the previous night. To his surprise, the black crystal ball had vanished into thin air. There were just a few pieces of ashes remaining on the floor. It seemed that the black crystal ball had engaged a sort of self-destruct function, completely erasing all traces of its existence. Following which, he decided to take a glance at the mirror to have a look at himself. However, what he saw caused his expression to change uncontrollably. The man in the mirror had an alabaster white complexion. This color would make one assume that all the blood within his body had been sucked away. What was most noticeable was that his once raven black hair had turned a mix of grey and white. It was clear that the loss of his blood essence had brought about massive changes to his physiology. Li Luo stared blankly at the white-haired youth in the mirror and he spat out his thoughts. "It seems that I've become even more handsome." Finding joy even in the darkest times, Li Luo continued to muse, "It seems that I've lost more than half of the blood essence my body has stored up over the past 17 years. All to absorb this acquired resonance." The sudden loss of his blood essence had resulted in a situation where he felt exceptionally weak. Just the act of taking a few steps made him feel dizzy. On top of that, he could also feel an indescribable emptiness within him. This was not a matter of the heart, but rather the loss of his longevity. Li Luo pursed his lips. From this moment on, did he only have 5 years of life remaining? This would truly force one to feel the pressure of time ticking. He exhaled deeply and closed his eyes. It was time to understand his new body. He could perceive that where there were previously 3 blank palaces, there was now an azure light being emitted from his first palace. It continuously emitted comfortable and gentle rays of power that were gradually absorbed by this dried-up body of his. Li Luo's mind was solely fixated upon the azure blue resonant palace. Although he had mentally prepared himself for this sight, actually witnessing it overwhelmed him with emotions. The acquired resonance assimilation was a great success. On this day, his issue of a blank palace had been resolved. Furthermore, his previously unwanted and troublesome blank palaces had turned into a wondrous opportunity for him. Opening his eyes, he could feel the worldly natural energy all around him, with 2 particular types of energy naturally attracted to him. They were water and light resonance power. In the future, he would be able to absorb these two energies for himself, turning them into his own resonant power. Till then, he would have to cultivate some energy cultivation arts. This was not a huge issue, because House Loulan possessed a strong foundation and hence had stockpiled numerous types. As Li Luo pondered over his future, he gradually stood up, took a shower, and changed to a clean set of clothes. After changing, he reassessed himself in the mirror once again. I might be looking a little haggard and with a head of greyish hair, but damn do I look even more handsome and irresistible than before. Li Luo muttered as he gave a radiant smile. Li Luo, your new life awaits you. Meanwhile, within an old manor in the city of Southwind, although it seemed a little deserted, today's atmosphere was rare and solemn. Numerous guards were patrolling the premises surrounded by layers upon layers of sentries. Within the main hall, the atmosphere was similarly somber. It felt hard to even breathe. The spacious hall was furnished with two opposing rows of seats. In the middle of those two rows was a pair of seats, one still empty, whilst Jiang Qing'e occupied the other. Her serene gaze was tinged with coldness. Her golden pupils indifferently swept across the hall, occasionally flitting towards the row on her left. Within that row was a group of 4, all exuding roiling waves of energy. The strongest aura came from the one sitting at the head of the row. He looked to be a youth of around 27 or 28. His features were ordinary, nothing outstanding. His eyes were deep and his nose was long and narrow. On his right earlobe hung a sword-shaped earring that glowed with a faint, cold light. His expression at this moment was extremely warm and a smile was on his face, making it easy for people to have a good impression of him. However, Jiang Qing'e was extremely familiar with the person in front of her. He was not some sort of benevolent individual. In fact, ever since she took control of House Loulan, he was the one responsible for causing her all sorts of impediments. This was Li Taixuan and Tan Tailan's disciple in name, an influential figure of House Loulan, Pei Hao. The 3 sitting below him were 3 pavilion masters of the Council of 9. Sitting right across their row were the other 6 pavilion masters of the Council of 9. Out of the 6 of them, 4 supported Jiang Qing'e, whereas the last 2 were neutral, supporting neither party. One glance at the way the rows were positioned made it abundantly clear just how turbulent the undercurrents of House Loulan had become. Without the 2 supporting pillars, Li Taixuan and Tan Tailan, the foundations were easily swayed by the elements and changes. It had been silent for quite some time, accompanied by the reverberating sounds of tea sipping around the hall. As though it was prearranged, the head of the left row, Pei Hao, suddenly placed his teacup on the table with nary an extra amount of force. The clear, crystalline ringing of the cup echoed around the hall, immediately causing the peaceful atmosphere of the room to come to a halt. Pei Hao raised his head and glanced at Jiang Qing'e whilst smiling. "Dear junior sister, everyone has been waiting for almost half a day. Why has the young lord not arrived? Even though he is the young lord, everyone knows that we are here to decide upon the matters of House Loulan. I have to remind you that when the masters were around, everyone was punctual. This demonstrates his lack of regard for us." As he spoke, the expressions of the pavilion masters of the Council of 9 were varied. Some were unchanging, some frowned slightly, while the rest murmured in a soft tone. Jiang Qing'e apathetically replied, "Why have I never seen you exhibit so much patience when the masters were around, then?" Pei Hao's eyes narrowed into a line as he smiled. "Apprentice sister, the future waits for no one, and we have to move forward." Pausing, he stared to look at the rest of the hall before continuing, "Since the young lord is late and has not shown himself, I recommend that we proceed and not waste any more time." In any case, at this point, he had an exasperated smile on his face. We all understand his situation. In fact, it's probably for the better that he's not around. Why not let him rest peacefully? Within the hall was a myriad of different expressions. Other than Jiang Qing'e, no one else had spoken since the beginning. Since no one has any disagreements, let us begin. Pei Hao continued to smile as he waved his hand, indicating that a decision had been made. Jiang Qing'e had an icy countenance at this point, but just as she was about to speak, cacophonous laughter rang from behind the beaded curtain in the room before the hall. "Senior Pei Hao. It's been quite a few years since we've last met. You seem to have become somewhat tyrannical. I suppose if my parents knew of how outstanding you have become, they would definitely have appreciated you a little more. As the laughter rang out, the beaded curtain lifted and a slender and handsome youth strode in with a smirk on his face. When everyone in the main hall saw that face, their bodies couldn't help but to shake involuntarily as everyone reflexively stood up as though conditioned to do so. That face was exceptionally similar to the one they respected from the depths of their hearts. Even Pei Hao's silly smile had stiffened for a brief moment upon his entrance. His body seemed to have bent slightly, and at the moment he was about to stand, his heart calmed down and he saw him for who he was. The person in front of him was not one of the two masters. This was just a blank palace cripple. To regain order, he quickly raised his hand and crushed the teacup in front of him. A crisp and clear sound blanketed the room when the entire teacup turned into dust. This seemed to have awakened the 9 pavilion masters from their stupor, and they quickly composed themselves. Following which, embarrassment could be seen scrawled all over their faces. The 3 pavilion masters on Pei Hao's side immediately took their seats. The remaining 6 pavilion masters hesitated for a brief moment before walking over to offer their respects to Li Luo. "Greetings, young lord." As they focused more closely on Li Luo, they noticed that despite him resembling his parents in style, he did not possess the same awe-inspiring momentum. In short, he was still too young and immature. Although that illusion of grandeur only happened for a split second, it seemed as though they could no longer remain as calm as before. What made them feel the most surprised was Li Luo's head of grey hair. Even Jiang Qing'e was astounded by Li Luo's new hair color as she scrutinized him. This brat was clearly just fine yesterday. Li Luo reciprocated the greetings to the 6 and then glanced at the immovable Pei Hao, who was still rooted into his seat. "Even though it's only been a few years since we've met, it looks like you've changed into a completely different person, Senior Pei Hao." Everyone within the hall could understand the implied meaning behind Li Luo's words, causing the pavilion masters' gazes to light up. In the past, when Li Taixien and Tan Tailan were still around, Pei Hao would smile warmly and treat Li Luo gently, like a loving elder brother. He would often even spend time racking his brains for appropriate gifts for Li Luo. Unfortunately, no one, not even Li Luo's parents, could have ever expected that this perennially respectful disciple would suddenly bare his fangs and reveal his true personality in the years they were gone. Pei Hao replied with that ever-smiling face of his as he observed Li Luo, "It's been a while. Little Luo seems to have aged quite a bit." Following which, he paused and then frowned seriously, "Though why is it that you've become so pale and your hair has turned white? It looks like at the rate that you're going, you barely have much longer to live." Pei Hao's voice resounded throughout the hall, causing the atmosphere to freeze immediately. Who would have expected that this once amiable and friendly man would spout such poisonous and vicious words? Even though Li Luo's complexion was indeed pale and sickly, one didn't have to go so far as to curse that the person was doomed to die, no? The 3 pavilion masters beside Pei Hao clearly looked awkward in reaction to this chain of events. However, they did not speak and just continued to stare at the floor, as though the tiles were the most fascinating objects in the world. The other 6 pavilion masters, on the other hand, were clearly enraged. Peng! Another large shock echoed throughout the room, surprising all. When they looked over, they saw that Jiang Qing'e's jade-like palm had slammed against the table, an absolutely icy expression on her face. Yet before Jiang Qing'e could speak, Pei Hao immediately patted his mouth and laughed. Sorry. I spoke out of turn and accidentally shot my mouth off. I hope little Luo won't fault me for my accidental transgressions." Li Luo glared at Pei Hao as he sized him up before also breaking into a smile. Although he was accustomed to seeing the two-faced reactions of numerous people in the past few years, those were all outsiders. Pei Hao was someone who had been saved by his parents, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he had been given a new lease of life. Without Li Taixien and Tan Tailan, Pei Hao would probably have had his 4 limbs broken by that family he offended and thrown into the sewers before being left for dead. Where would he even have the opportunity to attain all that he had now? Everything that this Pei Hao had revealed demonstrated a complete lack of gratitude for Li Luo's parents. On top of that, he even harbored a considerable grudge. This led Li Luo to sigh. His parents may have been wise and brilliant over the years, but even then, they were human and had made a mistake. No worries. This is just your true self leaking out. What is there to be offended about? To be frank, even if I were, what could I do about it? Hence, I won't say any superfluous words here. Li Luo shook his head and took his seat in the middle of the two rows. Pei Hao's face was full of mirth as he casually spun a thumb ring around his finger. He didn't seem to have taken any offense or become enraged at Li Luo's mocking words. There was no need to. It was as Li Luo had said, even if he was offended, what could Li Luo do? The House Loulan of today was no longer the house of the past. Without its two immovable pillars, there was no one who Pei Hao feared. A hopeless young lord was only useful as a puppet. If not for Jiang Qing'e, he would very possibly have taken control of the entire House Loulan by now. Since the young lord is here, then I suppose the discussions can begin. Pei Hao turned to look at Jiang Qing'e. Jiang Qing'e remained expressionless as she apathetically replied, "Why don't you start? Why haven't you contributed even a single piece of sky gold from the 3 pavilions under your control to the house treasuries this year?" Pei Hao lightly sighed and replied, "The 3 pavilions under me are not doing well this year at all. Junior sister, you might have already heard that all 3 pavilions have mysteriously burned down. I suspect it is the doings of those external powers that covet our House Loulan's businesses. I tried my best to investigate the root of the issue, but alas! My investigations turned up with absolutely no result. Hence, I have nothing to contribute this year." Li Luo merely listened quietly. Although Pei Hao's explanation seemed unbelievable and even comical, he did not interrupt. He understood that his words held no weight within House Loulan. The title of young lord was merely a superficial title in the eyes of everyone within the house. Thus, there was no need to speak out and court a rebuff. Jiang Qing'e gave Pei Hao a deep and firm look before saying, "Is this your reason, Pei Hao?" Pei Hao casually smirked yet again. "Since junior sister wants a reason, then I will just give you a random one. Is there really a need to clarify certain things? Perhaps now that things have come to this, then let me make it clear to junior sister and the young lord. The 3 pavilions under me will not be contributing a single piece of sky gold this year. In fact, from today onwards, they will not be contributing anything ever again." Pei Hao's light tone landed heavily on everyone's ears. It was as though a peal of thunder had crashed through the room, absolutely shocking all. Jiang Qing'e's body started to exude a cold air and the very atmosphere seemed to have congealed. Her icy tone chilled the hearts of everyone in the room. "So it looks like you plan to defect?" Pei Hao grinned before replying, "I could hardly bear to leave House Loulan. It's just that there isn't an actual house lord right now. Who knows what or where this sky gold will end up if I pass it over. Perhaps when an appropriate house lord is finally chosen, I reckon it won't be too late to submit my tithes." A depressing atmosphere pervaded the hall. The other 6 pavilion masters had ugly looks on their faces. If this was truly the case, then House Loulan would become the joke amongst the 4 great houses. This was because Pei Hao had effectively already formed his own feudal army and demonstrated his intent to rebel and divide House Loulan up. "Pei Hao, do you plan to destroy House Loulan? Do you think you will benefit from its downfall?" a middle-aged man with a deep voice asked. His name was Lei Zhong, and he was a representative that supported Jiang Qing'e. Pei Hao shook his head. "As I previously said, I don't wish for House Loulan's downfall." Pausing for a few breaths, he looked over at the silent Li Luo before continuing, "Actually, I want to follow the rules. It's not impossible for me to contribute my tithes honestly. Of course, I hope that the young lord can promise me a single thing in exchange." Li Luo snapped out of his state where he was merely observing with his senses and his heart before affixing his gaze at Pei Hao. Curiously, he asked, "I would like to know what sort of condition manager Pei Hao has in mind." Pei Hao's eyes shifted from Li Luo to envelope Jiang Qing'e, taking in the sights of her icy and exquisite demeanor and her slender figure. A trace of fiery greed passed through the depths of his pupils. "I hope that the young lord will annul the engagement with junior sister. After these words were spoken, the temperature within the room seemed to have dropped to absolute zero and everything froze. Li Luo was not furious, but rather seemed to have turned expressionless. He had often discussed the idea of breaking up the engagement with Jiang Qing'e and had even come up with a promise for the future. Yet this was something between himself and Jiang Qing'e. The two of them were free to do whatever they wanted or say anything they wished between themselves. It was a personal relationship. On the other hand, Pei Hao had come up with such a ludicrous idea. Just who did he think he was? Bang! Just as Li Luo's heart was turning cold and about to explode forth, a sudden influx of energy exploded outwards within the main hall. This energy was resplendent and bright, its radiance sweeping across all, bathing the entire hall with light rays. Immediately after, Li Luo could indistinctly make out Jiang Qing'e being wreathed in light and shooting outwards, leaving a wondrous afterimage behind. She headed directly towards where Pei Hao was sitting. This sudden attack also took Pei Hao by surprise, and so he could only stare. In the blink of an eye, his own body was also wreathed in golden light. The sword-shaped earring on his right ear quickly disattached and swiftly, like a storm, transformed into a golden longsword. Surging golden resonant power coated the longsword, increasing its sharpness. Additionally, an inordinate amount of colorful energy channeled through it, looking like countless rainbows. Dang! The collision of metal and gold clashed, resulting in an explosive shockwave of energy. At the same time, all of the furniture within the hall was blasted into pieces. The 9 pavilion masters immediately acted and dissolved the remnant energy, trying to observe the aftermath. All they could see was 2 silhouettes locked in a confrontation with swords brandished. Jiang Qing'e against Pei Hao. Jiang Qing'e was clutching an épée, a sword dripping with resplendent light. The light was bright enough to dazzle the eyes, and if one were to stare at it for too long, they would undoubtedly feel piercing pain in their pupils. Who would have expected that this normally refined and pure goddess would be able to produce such shocking amounts of power in the heat of the moment? She possessed truly tyrannical light resonance power. On the opposite side of Jiang Qing'e stood Pei Hao, who was wielding a golden longsword. His body was emitting waves of golden resonant power that seemed unusually fierce and even sharp. This was metal resonant power. When the 2 swords clashed, resonant power exploded outwards, and even the floorboards were cracked to the point that patterns not unlike that of a turtle shell could be seen everywhere. Pei Hao, still unfazed, maintained a sweet smile. 9th grade light resonance. Its fame is well deserved. Junior sister is just an early stage earth fiend, but your resonant power is already so domineering. It's clearly not inferior to my late-stage Earth Fiend resonant power. Your metal resonance seems to have already been raised to the 7th grade. It looks like you have squandered quite a bit of the tithes meant for House Loulan, Jiang Qing'e coolly replied. Pei Hao used to have a 6th grade metal resonance, but during this particular clash, Jiang Qing'e could faintly feel that her opponent's metal resonant power had become even fiercer. Raising a 6th grade to a 7th grade would require a significant amount of spirit liquids and purifying lights. Pei Hao did not reply, and instead the two immediately burst out with even more resonant power, their swords savagely colliding for another blow. Dang! The energy generated from the clash blew both parties back a few steps. How presumptuous of you, Pei Hao! At this point, Lei Zhong and a few pavilion masters appeared behind Jiang Qing'e, their expressions a steely green as they chided. At the same time, the other 3 pavilion masters stood behind Pei Hao, their stances clear as they prepared themselves. The sounds of the battle could be heard from outside the hall. At the same time, chaos was everywhere outside as well. 2 waves of horses and men had rushed in, prepared to confront each other. Junior sister, are you planning to let the entire Xia Kingdom know of our internal strife? Pei Hao gave a wry smile. Jiang Qing'e had an unchanging, cold expression on her face, her gaze emanating waves of killing intent. Pei Hao, if you don't wish to die, then swallow those words of yours back into your defiled tummy. No one can interfere in our affairs, you have no right to. Pei Hao mused in silence for a moment as he frowned. Junior sister, why are you acting this way? Isn't that engagement merely a burden for you? I know that you are very thankful towards our masters, but there is no need to be so committed towards Li Luo. He just isn't a match for you. Cruel and unscrupulous dregs like you simply cannot comprehend what gratitude is, Jiang Qing'e insipidly replied. Pei Hao shook his head as he stared at Li Luo. Li Luo, it's best you smarten up. Otherwise, I will let you know the meaning of getting into trouble for hoarding a treasure. House Loulan is merely just a decoration to you. Junior sister, on the other hand, is a talented genius and is something you do not deserve to have. Believe me, if you want to imprison her with the gratitude she owes your parents, then you will eventually bring about a catastrophe to yourself. Li Luo calmly replied, unfazed by his maddened words, you're trying to say that I should let go of both House Loulan and Sister Qing'e. If you're smart enough, then that is exactly what you ought to do. Pei Hao nodded before he continued compassionately, I am doing this for your own good. If you don't have any power, then you ought to curb your greed. This way, you might still have a way to become a rich and idle man. Li Luo smiled and replied, Pei Hao, aren't you worried about what will happen to you when my parents eventually return? Pei Hao's pupils shrank slightly and the expressions of the three pavilion masters behind him turned grave. In the end, Pei Hao shook his head. Li Luo, you should not hold on to such sad and naive hopes. Based on what I've heard, I'm afraid my masters will no longer be able to return. As he looked at Li Luo, he gave a sympathetic sigh. Hence, your pillar of support is gone. Are you any different from me when I was powerless? No. In fact, I doubt you could even match up to me at my worst. Even at my worst, when I had no support and was poor and destitute, I still possessed some potential. You, on the other hand. You have nothing. This video will end here.